Yeah, yeah, yeah. So many lies that you hear from the net, they don't get her respect. She reporting the truth, not a check. You want an unbiased opinion straight from the chest, not a bit of conflict or someone here for a check. Tune in, these are thoughts from a lawyer on a mission who goes so hard it's like she works on commission. Trolls in the comments might say she tripping cause they lack the knowledge, they don't know they missing. Got a couple current events that you like, wanna know about law from the eyes. Tired of all these blogs running lies because their agendas are disguised. Tune in to the intellect, cause I'm sure y'all missing all the facts of the case that she steady is gifting. Someone here for the people, man, it's so uplifting. If you ain't subscribed yet, then you just omitting facts.
Today. Hello, everyone. It is Pam Esquire, also known as your law intellect. How is everyone doing? I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. I am literally fresh off of the plane and I wanted to watch this Menendez hearing on today. So, about a year ago, we went over a habeas petition of which the Menendez brothers are trying to get out. So if you want to go back and familiarize yourself with that live, I'll have to attach it probably to the end. But the DA in California is going to give a decision whether he is going to let the Menendez brothers out, who currently is serving life, I believe, without the possibility of parole. So we're going to watch that together. All right. It was supposed to start like 30 minutes ago, but apparently they're late, but I'm glad that they are because I wouldn't have made it. I look a whole mess. I'm straight off the plane, but thank you guys so much for coming in. Make sure you hit that like on your way in, please, and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Let's see. We're just waiting. We're patiently waiting. Oh, and I'm gonna talk to you guys again about my post I was doing over the last couple of days because you guys were really arguing with me. Y'all was really arguing with me with no authority. No authority for these arguments. And we know better than that over here. We don't get froggy and we don't get all hype and we don't use exclamation points and we don't use all caps unless we have some authority to back up all of our beating our chest. Okay. So we're going to get into Jeffrey and all of them the Abercrombie and Finch guy and Diddy and YSL. We're going to get into all of that, but it'll probably be later on after I eat. Yeah, I watched the series. Did you watch it, Thais? I know you were talking about watching the series as well. I know you guys don't like Diddy. I get it. I understand it. But I'm just saying how we have two legal systems, it appears. And people say the system is broken, but I think the system is working and operating the way it was meant to operate. But that's going to have to be a separate, conversation that we have. But I read that stuff on that Abercrombie and Finch guy, and I just knew they weren't going to let him get out on no bail. I was like, oh no. And then when it happened, I was just like, oh, okay, I see what's happening here. We're going to get into that. They are really taking their time with this press conference. Had me rushing home. Yeah. You said, Jaleesa said, I watched it and it was good. Yeah. Yeah, I know a little bit information on the YSL as well. I kind of watch it touch and go. There are some people that are more of the authority on it because they watched it from day one and they've talked to family members and they sit in the courtroom and put in 8 hours like it's a job. But I did see some of the things that happened the last couple of days, and I do think it's worth talking about. So we'll talk about that as well. I just was in New Orleans all week visiting my son, so that's the reason why I haven't been live. But I missed you guys, so Thank you guys so much for coming on. I appreciate it. Jeffries wasn't intimidating witnesses. That's the difference. Oh, okay. And that's based on what authority? See, this is what I'm talking about. It feels like to me, and we'll get into it, like I said, that people are just making assumptions. Okay, you're definitive on everything that got to do with Diddy, but you make assumptions when it comes to Jeffries. There's an assumption that he didn't intimidate witnesses, even though I posted something that showed you of which he was accused of that as well. But nonetheless, there just seems like we when I put that post up and said, is that fair? People automatically told about what this man didn't do. But we don't know everything that this man did or did not do because all of his stuff was not plastered in the media like it was with Diddy. But what we do know is that this man had an international, not a United States ring. He had an international sex prostitution ring with young boys. That's what we do know. So at least come with your authority. That's all I'm saying. When you make those type of accusations, just say, I'm speculating. I could respect that. But when you make definitive comments of which you have no authority behind it, or you haven't even bothered to look at this case at all, then that's why even make a comment. It's like you just want to make it as if there was really a rationale to why he got bond and Diddy didn't. That's all I'm saying. But anyway. God did it, said Jeffrey should be incarcerated. He's evil. Well, you mean like awaiting bail? He hasn't. He's innocent as well until proven guilty, just like Diddy is. They're all presumed innocent. The government has to prove their case. Then somebody argued with me, well, it was Damian Williams, and that the Eastern District is different from the Southern District of New York. First everybody was saying it happened in Florida. So then I had to show everybody the indictment said it was New York. This has just been the craziest back and forth the last 24 hours. Then it was in the Southern District, and this is in the Eastern District. I'm like, y'all do know R. Kelly was in the Eastern District, right? The same district as Jeffries. Okay. Just saying. Simply means that way Abercrombie got bond, then a diddler deserve a bond too. I hate to say. I think everybody hates to say it. But all I'm saying is to open up your mind. That's it. It's not like people made it like I was getting mad about it, but it really ain't that deep for me. I just was like, trying to get to invoke conversation and invoke thought. That's what we do over here. But yeah, there were three defendants on the Jeffries case. It was Jeffries, his partner, and then it was somebody named Smith. Smith is the only one that did not get bond, and the reasoning is because Smith is not a U.S. citizen. He is a citizen of the U.K. So clearly you're not about, and he still had contacts with the UK. So he wasn't one of those people that was a non-citizen, but really just wanted to be in this United States of America so bad. It wasn't one of them situations. It was literally a situation where he still had contact with his home country. So yeah, they wasn't giving him nothing. But the other two, Jeffries and his partner, yeah, they both were offered bond by the government. It was $10 million and one, and I forgot what the other one was. But yeah. Let me see. They taking a whole long time for this. I should have went and ate a couple of my little morsels of my food. Who is this guy? The case was always in the Southern District of New York. It was always in the Southern District. It was just Jeffries was in Florida when all of this stuff happened. So he was in Florida. So what you can do, and I've done that before, you can do limited jurisdiction of which you do the arraignment in whatever state that you're in, but then you have to come to the state that is indicting you. So his indictment is in the Southern District of New York. Even though the pictures say he left Florida, he got arraigned in Florida. He had an attorney that did a limited appearance. He was able to turn himself in. He turned himself in and he waived all his, rights to appearances and all that stuff in New York. And then New York just takes over the case because it's their indictment. Diddy, on the other hand, came to New York. So, of course, when he got arrested there, they didn't allow him to turn himself in. Good afternoon, Miss Candace. Roberta Collins said, "Do you believe the jail call was Diddy?" I don't personally believe it was him. And one of the reasons, and if it was really him, then somebody's probably going to be in trouble because federal calls are not public. They're not allowed for the public like the state. Thank you. Hey. Less bond than Diddy was willing to pay. Double standard, Elaine. That's all I'm saying. I just want you to keep your eyes open because what I do appreciate about the YSL trial is that a lot of the shenanigans that occurred in that trial is not new. It's new to a lot of people because we weren't that invested into the system or watching trials. We don't watch our local people. We don't watch our local Joe Schmo on the corner and their family. We don't watch any of that. This was just something we were able to see in real time. Like, how do you think wrongful convictions happen? Because of things like what happened YSL, they were blessed because one, it was televised. So the whole public can see the outrage and how the judge was ruling and all of that. And two, you had they had money. So they had attorneys that was paid to do exactly what they did. Find every error, object to everything, request a mistrial when it was needed. They had that. But what about the person that can't afford it? Can't afford a lawyer. That doesn't have the resources. No, Roberta. YSL is a state court in Fulton County in Georgia. They taking forever. I could have kept pausing them. Wait a minute. Shit, you might as well kick it, y'all. Excuse me. But yeah, so that I think that is one of the takeaways again from like the YSL trial was, can you imagine the people that didn't have that manpower of all these great defense attorneys that were good to watch, but at the end of the day, you had to realize these were real lives on the line. How many shenanigans were played before with some of these DAs before that nobody caught? Should they start reopening some of these cases? It just leaves a lot of questions. It just so happened that because Thug is and YSL is just rappers who people care about because they're celebrities, we wanted to watch. You got 20,000 people watching every day. You got 6, 7 people coming in trying to record and take pictures and do it on YouTube, and they're not necessarily lawyers. They're doing this stuff on YouTube. You got panels, you got all this stuff that made you invested in a case. So you see all of the slip ups, you see all of the unfairness, you see all of this. But do you think this does not happen in your personal local jurisdiction? Absolutely, it does. No, the YSL trial, they didn't because they're late on this hearing that we're waiting on. Might as well talk about it. But the YSL trial did not end in a mistrial as of yet. And from my understanding, they're not having court tomorrow. They are starting back on Monday. And allegedly, Madam DA is meeting with each individual defendant and they're getting offered deals. This is alleged. They're getting offered. That doesn't mean they're taking it or they're, obviously they're going to listen and try to entertain it, I guess. But it's ultimately up to, okay, do we got somebody coming in? Okay, look like we might got some action. There's Mark Garagos. That is the attorney for the Menendez brothers. And many of you guys probably remember him. I believe he was like on Michael Jackson's case as well. His daughter is one of the defense attorneys on Diddy's case in New York. Let's see what's going to happen. Guys think they're going to get out?
Good afternoon, everyone. And before I begin speaking, I want to also introduce some other people that are here with me, and I hope I'm pronouncing the names right because that's the handwritten part of it. But I have Ana Maria Baran, Jose Menendez, Jose Menendez, and niece Karen Vandermolen, and Kitty's niece. They're all here with us. Also with us here is Brock Lunsford. He's the assistant head deputy for the post-litigation conviction unit, and Nancy Cervier, who is the deputy district attorney in charge of the resentencing unit. Let me begin by telling you that this is a case where we've had many people in this office spend a great deal of time reviewing the case. I can tell you unequivocally that we don't have a universal agreement. There are people in the office that strongly believe that the Menendez brothers should stay in prison the rest of their life, and they do not believe that they were molested. And there are people in the office that strongly believe that they should be released immediately and that they were in fact molested. I have to tell you that after a very careful review of all the arguments that were made for people on both sides of this equation, I came to a place where I believe that under the law, resentencing is appropriate, and I am going to recommend that to a court tomorrow. What that means in this particular case is that we're going to recommend to the court that the life without the possibility of parole be removed and that they would be sentenced for murder, which, because there are two murders involved, that would be 50 years to life. However, because of their age, under the law, since they were under 26 years of age at the time that these crimes occurred, they will be eligible for parole immediately. The teams that have worked on this, on the resentencing side of it, have spent literally probably hundreds of hours by now looking at this case. These cases were originally presented on the habeas side of it, which I'll explain in a moment what that is, last year, and then the request for a prosecutor-initiated resentencing occurred earlier this year. And there have been people in this office working in these cases from the very beginning, as well as many other cases that we have. The reason why I'm here today and why I came in front of all of you about 10 days ago is because there was a more recent documentary about the case that again brought a tremendous amount of public attention. And we know there have been other documentaries, so this is not the first, this is the more recent one. And frankly, our office got flooded with requests for information. And even though this case was already scheduled to be heard in late November, I decided to move this forward because, quite frankly, we did not have enough resources to handle all the requests. And one of the things that I thrive to do in this office is to be very transparent in everything that we do. In this case, we review the prison files. You have to understand that the way the process works, when you're talking about a sentence and resentencing under the law, it really focuses not necessarily on what the original crimes were, but it focuses on, has the person been rehabilitated, number one, and number two, can they be released safely into the community? Under that rubric, since I've been in office, we have resentenced over 300 people, including 28 for murder. Only 4 have reoffended. If that was a regular recidivism rate in this country, we would be the safest nation in the world, but we know that it's not. In fact, somewhere between 40 and 50% of the people that go to prison reoffend and get rearrested. And that's why we have so many problems. However, when you look at the case of the Menendez brothers, you see 2 very young people. One was 19 and the other was 21 when they committed this horrible acts. And I want to underline, they were horrible acts. There is no excuse for murder. And I will never imply that what we're doing here is to excuse that behavior. Because even if you get abused, the right path is to call the police, seek help. But I understand also how sometimes people get desperate. We often see women, for instance, that have been battered for years, and sometimes they will murder their abuser out of desperation. And I do believe that the brothers were subjected to a tremendous amount of dysfunction in the home and molestation. But they went to prison for life without the possibility of parole, which meant that certainly under the law at that time, they had no hopes of ever getting out. They could have done what many other people do, which is basically said, you know what, I'm here for the rest of my life, so I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to misbehave, I'm going to join gangs, I'm going to live the life of a person. But they never did that. To the contrary, even though they didn't think that they would ever be let free, they engaged in a different journey. A journey of redemption and a journey of rehabilitation. And often the people that begin their journey of rehabilitation and redemption in prison is often very internal. And what they do, and one of our lawyers pointed out this today, is usually the path is people try to further their education, do things for self-improvement, which the brothers have done, by the way. But it's more unique or less usual, I guess, when people not only do that, but they also begin to engage in ways to make life for others better. And in this case, the brothers have been doing so for a very long time, creating groups to deal with how to address untreated trauma, creating groups to deal with other inmates that have physical disabilities and may be treated differently. Even in one case, Lyle negotiating for other inmates as to the conditions that they live under during prison. And all this was done by 2 young people. Now they're not as young. They had no hopes of ever getting out of prison. They have been in prison for nearly 35 years. I believe that they have paid their debt to society, and the system provides a vehicle for their case to be reviewed by a parole board, and if the parole concurs with my assessment, and it will be their decision, they will be released accordingly. I must underline, however, this case will be filed in court tomorrow. The final decision will be made by the judge. Court has to agree with my conclusion that they deserve to be resentenced. It is very possible that there may be members of this office that will be present in court opposing the resentencing. And they have a right to do so. And we encourage those that disagree with us to speak, and the court is the appropriate place to do it. We certainly feel we're very sure not only that the brothers have rehabilitated and that they will be safe to be reintegrated in our society, but that they have paid their dues, not only for the crimes that they committed, but because of all the other things they have done to improve the life of so many others. So, again, we will be filing for resentencing tomorrow. We're seeking that they would be sentenced to life with the possibility of parole, as opposed to life without the possibility of parole, which is they currently have. That means that they would have 50 years to life because there were 2 murders. But because of the age upon which they were convicted, under 26, under current law, that means they're eligible for youthful parole. I think there is also important to have some introspection today, because I think that often, for cultural reasons, we don't believe victims of sexual assault, whether they're women, whether they're men. We saw in our first trial, which, by the way, they were tried twice. The first trial hung, meaning the jury could not come to a conclusion, and in fact, about half of the jury wanted to convict them of manslaughter, which, if that were have been the case, they would have been off prison a long time ago. And then there was a second trial, and then they were convicted of murder with special circumstances, which led to the life without the possibility of parole. But it's salient to understand that our own implicit and sometimes explicit bias around sexual abuse and sexual assaults often leads us to severe injustices in our community. And I want to speak to those that are victims of sexual assault now, whether you're a man or a woman. Know that we're here for you. If you're a victim of sexual assault in this community, and by that we're talking about LA County, not just LA City, you can come for help. Whether you're prepared to prosecute or not, we will be here for you. We have services for you. And if you're prepared to move forward with the prosecution, we will evaluate it as we do any other case. And if we believe that the evidence is there to present a credible case in front of a jury that can be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, we would proceed accordingly. You do not have to suffer alone. You don't have to keep it to yourself. And help is here unconditionally. I'm going to say a few words in Spanish because I know there's tremendous amount of interest from the Spanish media, and I know that there are going to be other speakers today, and then we're going to open it up for questions. Primero que nada, quiero dar las gracias a todos por estar aquí hoy. Estamos hablando del caso de los hermanos Menéndez. Este fue un caso donde 2 hermanos, uno de 19 y uno de 21 años, asesinaron a sus padres más de 3 décadas atrás. Los muchachos fueron condenados por asesinato y llevan en la prisión alrededor de 35 años. Este fue un caso que tuvo mucha atención pública cuando sucedió y indudablemente tiene mucha atención pública hoy cuando vemos esta habitación como está llena. La razón por la que nosotros estamos buscando que la Corte reevalúe la sentencia original es la siguiente. Bajo la ley de California, cuando una persona es acusada de un crimen, ese crimen puede ser reevaluado si la persona lleva muchos años en la cárcel o la prisión y enseña que se ha rehabilitado y que puede ser reintegrado en la comunidad sin causar peligro para el resto de nosotros. En el caso de los hermanos Menéndez, nosotros hemos revisado el caso y creemos, número uno, que se han rehabilitado y número dos, que pueden ser reintegrados en la comunidad sin causar peligro para el resto de nosotros. Es importante notar que este es un caso de dos muchachos que tenían 19 y 21 años, que probablemente fueron no solamente acosados por su familia, pero posiblemente también fueron molestados sexualmente. Aunque no hay excusa ninguna para los crímenes que ellos cometieron, reconocemos también que habían ciertas condiciones que pueden haber creado esta situación. Desde que están en la prisión, ellos han demostrado con sus acciones y sus palabras que iban a hacer todo lo que era posible para rehabilitarse. No solamente ellos hicieron cosas para mejorar su vida personalmente, pero también tomaron parte en muchos programas y crearon programas para ayudar a otros prisioneros. Hicieron todo esto durante un tiempo donde ellos no creían que iban a salir de la cárcel por el resto de su vida, porque su sentencia era de vida sin la posibilidad de salir de la cárcel. Lo que estamos haciendo hoy bajo la ley de California, vamos a hacer una petición a la Corte a que reevalúe esa sentencia y que lo vuelva a sentenciar por asesinato, pero con la posibilidad de salir con libertad condicional. En el caso de ellos, porque son dos asesinatos.
Vote for me. Vote for me. That's what he's saying right now.
De ser prohibido la oportunidad de salir con condiciones. Bajo la ley, cuando el crimen se cometió y la persona tenía menos de 26 años cuando lo cometió, esa persona puede ser evaluada inmediatamente para que su sentencia sea revisada y que se le pueda dar otra sentencia. Bajo las condiciones de cómo ellos se han portado en la prisión y la evidencia de que están rehabilitados y de que pueden ser reintegrados en nuestra comunidad, es muy posible que ellos sean permitidos salir a la calle de nuevo, pero esa decisión estará con el sistema de prisiones y no con nuestra oficina. Legalmente, lo que nosotros vamos a hacer mañana es presentar una petición a la Corte. La Corte es la que toma la última decisión.
Y'all know what mañana is. He's basically saying in the morning he's going to file these court documents, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the court is going to agree. So, hey, if they don't get out, it's not on me. I did what I could. So please vote for me, re-elect me, because I've split the baby. That's what I've just done. I've split the baby. Okay. So I'm not going to make everybody happy. Okay. Here's another lady.
Good afternoon. My name is Ana Maria Baralt, and I'm the niece of Jose Menendez. Eric and Menendez are my cousins. I would also like to acknowledge the other family members here, some standing, some seated. Joan Vandermolen is here, Kitty's sister, as well as Diane Vandermolen Hernandez, Kitty's niece. Thank you for joining me, everyone. Today is a day filled with hope for our family. We are here because District Attorney Gascon has taken a brave and necessary step forward by recommending a resentencing for Lyle and Eric. The DA's decision reflects the truth that was hidden for so long, and I am grateful for his leadership in making this choice. We stand united in our hope and gratitude. Together, we can make sure that Eric and Lyle receive the justice they deserve and finally come home. Thank you to District Attorney George Gascon for his courage and leadership. This step gives us all hope that the truth will finally be heard and that Lyle and Eric can begin to heal from the trauma of their past. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Maria.
Yeah.
Jose Menendez is gonna say a few words.
This is the niece of Kitty
Oh, you're gonna
Menendez,
say- sorry.
Joan Vandermolen.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for coming. We are here today because District Attorney Gascon has taken a brave and compassionate step forward by recommending resentencing for my cousins, Eric and Lyle. And we wish to offer our deepest gratitude to DA Gascon. This decision is not just a legal matter. It is a recognition of the abuse my cousins endured, and we are grateful for the DA's leadership in putting justice over politics. We know this wasn't an easy decision, but is the right one. This is about truth, justice, and healing. It is time for Lyle and Eric to come home. And I ask all of you to join us in this fight for justice. We stand united in our hope and in our gratitude. Together we can make sure that Eric and Lyle receive the justice they deserve and finally come home. Thank you again to District Attorney George Gascon for his courage and leadership. This step gives us all hope that truth will finally be heard and Eric and Lyle can begin to heal from the horrors of their past. We hope this will also shed light and increase awareness and help others who have been victimized by sexual violence. Thank you all so much for being here today. We are grateful for everyone's support.
Is there anyone else speaking? Okay. Okay, and I apologize. I'm reading notes here and I'm trying to understand all the notes. Yes, ma'am.
Can you explain, so you go tomorrow, you file a case for resentencing, then what happens after? Are the brothers gonna be there tomorrow, and when is the role of the parole board going to come in?
Right, and you know what? I'm going to actually have the people that are handling the case walk you through all of it. The brothers will not be there tomorrow. The role of parole board comes later, but Nancy, why don't you walk me through?
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll file our,
Say your name, and your name and your title.
my name is Nancy Thaberge. I'm the deputy in charge of the resentencing unit. This is Brock Lunsford, assistant head deputy of the post-conviction litigation division. So what will happen is tomorrow we will file the actual petition requesting resentencing with the legal arguments and accompanying exhibits as to why we think it's appropriate. It's just a filing. No one's going to physically be in the courtroom. From there, we'll also serve the defense with our motion and our paperwork so that they'll have their copies. And from there, we will coordinate with the defense to set up a court date with the court so that the petition can be heard. Now, whether or not that's a setting or a hearing will be decided between us and the defense and the court once everybody gets an idea of what we filed. Then from there at the hearing, the defense can either decide to have the defendants, the Menendez brothers, physically brought into court. They can ask that the individuals appear by video or audio WebEx, a kind of a Zoom participation, which we all kind of adapted to because of COVID. And then from there, we will do the hearing and submit all the written and legal and oral arguments and any evidence that needs to be admitted at the time, and then the court will rule at that point. But we don't have that court date yet because we're just starting the process tomorrow. But it's our intention to have that go forward before the habeas, because if the judge grants it, that may impact the defense's decision to proceed on the habeas. So we're gonna try it just as a matter of economy of time to stack it one before the other.
Now, have the brothers found out about this in real time, or were they told about this beforehand, or what was their reaction if they were?
No, this
No,
was.
this is actually the family was only invited to come. They were not aware what the final decision was until a few minutes ago. The brothers may be actually seeing you guys on TV or social media, but no one knew other than a very small number of people in this office. And by the way, I should tell you that actually the final decision was just made about an hour ago.
If the judge ruled in favor,
Right, then it goes back to the prison system, and then the parole system takes over that. That's good.
Would there be a parole or probationary period where they have to live in a halfway house or simply be released if they're allowed to be released?
You know, those are really completely entirely up to the parole board. Place, we'll try.
What was the factor that made the final decision? You said the final decision was just made. Was it the letter? Was it the Menudo confession? What was it that put you over the top to make?
No, what it was is I was evaluating the arguments that were being made within my office, both pro and against the release.
DA, can I ask you?
Hold on, I had
a lot of phone calls from
Yeah.
people
Yes,
that
but
want-
I'm, you know, you have made resentencing a cornerstone of your tenure as district attorney here in Los Angeles. There are some people who have accused you of using this very, very highly publicized, clearly case to use it for politics, given how close we are to the election. What's your response to people who have been?
There's nothing political about this. We have resentenced over 300 people, including 28 for murder. And we will continue to resentence people in the future. And that's all I can tell you.
But DA, question, but
Yes,
how
sir.
is your bid for
Excuse me,
re-election?
please. You're interrupting.
Everyone's interrupted. I'm just wondering how your bid for re-election.
Yes, please.
Thank
Yes.
you. Could the brothers be home by Thanksgiving?
I don't know the answer to that.
Why did you decide not to go with the reduced voluntary manslaughter?
That was part of the process that I was still going through up until a couple hours ago. I don't believe that a manslaughter would have been the appropriate charge given the premeditation that was involved in the murders. I believe that these were clearly murders that were premeditated. Now, the motivation, that's where, differences of opinion come up, but I don't think it would be appropriate to go all the way down to manslaughter.
DA,
Yes,
has
ma'am.
your bid for re-election?
Would you please stop? I am not going to talk about re-election, okay?
Okay, so.
If you want to talk to re-election, go outside, we'll
But
talk
has-
later. Please.
Relax.
¿Podría decir en español mañana?
I'm sorry, you're interrupting, sir. Please.
¿Qué va a pasar mañana después de que presenten en la corte los documentos?
Pues depende, como estaba explicando la abogada, la encargada de esta unidad, la corte probablemente va a señalar otro día donde los dos, la defensa y nosotros podemos ir y habrá una evaluación de la evidencia. Si hay alguien que se opone a esta moción que estamos, este proceso que estamos iniciando, también la corte va a poder oír todo eso y la corte toma la decisión final.
Did your office announce the press conference before you made your decision?
Yes, because we're going to make a decision one way or the other. It's just a question of what the decision is
Was
going to
that just giving you a
Yes.
timeline to
If
work?
you are no longer in office, what happens to this case? Could a potential successor undo what you're about to file?
be. I don't think so. Once it's filed, it's filed. It's up to the court to take it from there.
You mentioned
Yes, I'm sorry.
In a parole situation, obviously you have a policy that Judge Johnson will use to those. Since you're obviously supporting the push for release here, how would that work? Would people from post-mitigation and sentencing a big go between parole boards argue for the release? Or
No. We have a policy that we only send victim services advocate if the victim or the victim's family wants that support. We don't send lawyers to our parole boards to relitigate a case. The parole board is fully aware of what the initial crime was, the crime that led to the conviction. Their work is primarily to evaluate whether they're rehabilitated and safe to be released, and that will be the way here.
Can you break down the timeline for us? Can we expect a hearing by the end of the year? Do you know when we might get
Nancy,
something on the
we
books?
don't-
I'm hoping to get it on calendar, depending on the defense preparedness. I'd like to see it go to hearing probably within the next 30 to 45 days of the month. There's not much to argue because we're kind of
Okay, there's one more question, please, but related to the case, not to elections. If you want to talk about elections, we'll do
related
that.
to the case,
Yes, sir.
what would you like to say right now to Eric and Lyle Menendez?
What we like to say to them, and it's we, because it's not I've made the final decision, obviously, but we have a whole team that worked on it. We have a family here that wants to be reunited, is that we appreciate what they did while they were in prison. While I disapprove of the way they handle their abuse, we hope that they not only have learned, which appears that they have, but that if they get reintegrated into our community, that they continue to do public good. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, guys, please hit that like button because I'm about to go off on a little tangent real quick, but I have mixed feelings about this. As a person that does wrongful convictions, of course, I believe in grace. I believe in mercy. I've had grace and mercy in my life. And so I don't disagree that some people should be extended the grace and mercy. However, I understand that this gentleman is saying that he's not doing this for political reasons. He's doing this because, and he's resentenced a bunch of people in the past. However, he started out saying what made him look at this case again was the Netflix series, and he started getting a bunch of calls. So basically, you saw that this was something that the public and probably your constituents were interested in. So you made this a priority. You yourself said you expedited it because of that. Now, how many other people did you expedite? And how many other people who got resentenced did you actually make a press conference about them being resentenced? So don't piss on me and tell me that it's raining. Okay. Now, what he did was really split the baby. You got them wanting it to either be reduced to man, because you cannot negate the fact that these two, for those of you that are younger and don't know, because I was young around the time and it was one of the first televised cases, these two brothers basically off their parents, their mom and their dad. Rich, the father was a music exec. They were like rich, had buku money. They decided to unalive both of their parents. And after that, now there was proof. I guess they went and they bought the GUNs the week before or had it in their car. There was evidence that after everything happened, they went on a shopping spree with their parents' money, and nothing about them looked like that it was nothing about that looked like they were upset. And at first they didn't even think that they were the ones that did it. Okay. They were not. They became suspects because one of the brothers, now these people were in therapy. Okay. Obviously. So for this DA to say they've gotten the therapy they needed, these boys were in therapy at the time. Interestingly enough, they never told their therapist about this molestation. They told them, though, one of them told the therapist that they unalived their parents. So they weren't even really on the radar. People were looking at their bizarre behavior of spending money, spending their parents' money and all of that, but they weren't even on the radar. They called 911 tapes. You can probably hear where they were snotting, oh my God, I can't hold my parents are unalive, So they didn't even know who did it. One of the brothers decided to tell the therapist that they were seeing. And the therapist decided that I think he had a mistress, or I don't even think it was, I think he was married. So I think it was like his mistress, the girlfriend or something. They having pillow talk, and he decides to tell her that this Menendez brother told him about unaliving the parents. So she ended up calling the police and giving a tip. So that is actually how they were able to know that this even happened. Okay. So that it was a trial. When trial came, they came with this molestation defense. All right. And when they came with this defense, I think it was maybe some relative alleges that there were maybe circumstantial evidence that will somewhat corroborate that perhaps it happened. I always thought it was interesting that one of the brothers could not hold that he had unalived his parents, but he was able to go see a therapist all these years and never decided to divulge that he was being molested. But nonetheless, they have the first trial. This defense is there, and there's a hung jury because it was. So this isn't a new defense. This is not new at all. So there was a hung jury. The state retried them, and at this retrial, they got they went and did more research to disallow a lot of the information that was allowed into evidence that pertained to this alleged molestation. So the trial was different. It was the first trial was televised, and I think the second one, they didn't allow the media. But anyway, they didn't have all of the evidence, I guess, or circumstantial, whatever it was, related to this alleged molestation. They ended up getting found guilty, both of them life without the possibility of parole. So years later, there was a letter that came out where apparently one of the brothers, 6 or 7 months before the murders, wrote a letter to let me go back. Both of the brothers testified in the first trial about the molestation, I believe. The second trial, one of the brothers could not confess because he was on the phone with some chick, if I recall correctly, and he basically talked about things he was going to have to overcome, and he can be believable, and he was going to make some stuff up. Now, I'm paraphrasing, so I'm not sure exactly what he said, but nonetheless, this crippled their defense, so he couldn't testify. So they cried, they did all of that on the stand. So it was pivotal to the defense. So now this defense is not even here anymore, when it came to that. So that's that. There's literally recordings out there of them saying, I'll just come up with something and I'll make something up and I'll do this or whatnot. And those recordings came out. So he couldn't testify, so it wouldn't be used against him on, obviously on cross-examination by the state. Fast forward, there is a Netflix series, and there was another one on Menudo. The one on Menudo, I believe, was on, can't remember, I got all these streaming platforms, but there was one on Menudo, and one of the ones from Menudo alleged that when he was in, a lot of the same type nastiness was happening with Menudo. Older group, a lot of people, if you're young, you probably don't know who the heck they are, but look it up. So Menudo was like a boy band where everybody was, once you got a certain age, they were switching you out. Where apparently a lot of them were actually abused and assaulted as well. So there's the Menudo series. One of the people from the Menudo band alleged that the Menendez brothers' father did molested them as well. That's when it started this craze for TikTok and people looking into the cases, and people of this generation looking at cases from 30 years ago, that case from 30 something years ago. So that started the social media frenzy. Then just recently you had people like Kim Kardashian who came out and was like, they need to be free. They've done what they did was horrendous, but they've done their time. So basically they had the court of public opinion on lock is what ended up happening. A year ago, which I did a video on, Mark Garagos, who is the boy's attorney, filed a motion. They filed a habeas petition to try to free them, saying that they, should be free. And they said it was based on new evidence. And the new evidence had to do with this person coming out from Menudo. Plus, they also had the letter from that he wrote the cousin months, not years, but months before the murder, saying he's doing it again. I can't take it. And apparently, like, they cleaned up, the cousin died and they cleaned up the house or something and found the letter, if I recall correctly. The interesting part, though, is a lot of the things these boys did seem methodical. So even that letter really wasn't moving me like that, because I was like, shoot, that might have been the overlay for the underplay, because they knew that they were about to do what they did. That's it sounded like it made it premeditated, is how I looked at it when I seen the letter. But the Menudo situation did bring a different view, because now you're like, well, if he did it to him, perhaps he would do it to somebody else. You can look at it like, well, why, even though a lot of predators, they will mess with other people's kids and don't necessarily mess with their own, but there are some that do mess with their own. So that is really the backstory when it comes to the Menendez brothers. Now, what happened in this press conference is that this DA basically said that apparently they have a law. We have it where a juvenile is 18 They do use 18 and under. That's it. They're trying to increase it as well here. But apparently they have, under their youthful parole, they have it where for 26 and under, you're entitled to not do life without the possibility of parole. That means you have the eligibility to get out. So what he did was say, well, they already did 35 years. So we're going to change their sentence from life without the possibility of parole to just murder, where they have the right of parole, which gives you 50 years to life. But because that they were under 26, one was 19 and one was 21. Yes, they were adults, but one was 19 and one was 21. Then they qualify under this Youthful Parole Act. So therefore, they are eligible for parole right now while he was talking. But again, like he said, it's not up to him. And I think he made it clear, because what it looks like is if they decide not to do that, that ain't on me. So don't hold me accountable for that. Because I kind of split, because to me, you split the baby. You didn't make it where it was manslaughter and totally reduce it and say time served and everything was done. There is still a possibility. Now he just opened the door where now you can get out, but it's not going to be on him whether you guys get out or not. It's going to be on the parole board. Well, actually, it's going to be on the judge if the judge agrees to the resentencing. So he let everyone know that the judge, I'm just going to put in a petition, and the judge can choose whether they're going to resentence them or, agree that resentencing is what should be in this, is right for this case. And then after that, you're just eligible for parole and you go before the parole board, and then they can decide, yeah, we'll parole you or we'll flop you. So, and you got to go back to the next time, the next cycle for parole, depending on where you are. Some places are every 5 years, every couple of years. So, yeah, and they had both of them, Menendez, they had some great lawyering too. It reminds you of YSL with the lawyer. Like their attorney was a pretty good, she's a lot older now, but that's probably why I believe she's still alive. But yeah, I heard the prosecutors in the case were against them getting out, because there was last Friday I watched on 2020, this DA has already set for an interview. The prosecutor that prosecuted the case sat for an interview. Two of those relatives, they have sat for an interview. So this has become a big thing. My issue is there are people that don't have money, that are superstars to their family, that are superstars to their brothers and sisters, that are superstars to their wives or husbands or their mothers and fathers, and they don't get this type of grace and mercy. And that's the problem that I have. And I've really seen it in the last couple of weeks, because even when we were going hard about Marcellus, the one that got executed, they weren't giving us no smoke. They didn't care what we said. They went to the governor, the Supreme Court of that state. They went to the United States. In the United States Supreme Court, you only had the 3 liberal justices that were saying we would stay the execution. But then a week later, albeit in a different state, you had another guy, and I'm glad that this happened for him, but it still makes you think. There was a white guy who, Robertson, I think is his name, and the Innocence Project was also promoting him. He was hours away from being executed, and he was autistic, I guess, diagnosed as being autistic in prison, and they stayed his execution. Then you turn on to this Diddy situation. You know what I'm saying? Like this did. So I'm just watching this happening and happening and happening, and people are not seeing where the differences are. Yes, every state can conduct things the way that they see fit. However, this system is not broken. The system is doing what it was meant to do. When you went back in the day down south in Louisiana, and I'm sure they got several wrongfully convicted people, or people that's in there with life without parole, or been in the dang on hole for 30 years and all this unprecedented stuff that they do down there at Angola, who will never get any of this type of media attention. They will never get this chance. They will never get any of this. And so I get frustrated And it's like I'm happy for the people it works for. However, again, when slavery was abolished, it changed into mass incarceration. If you look at your history, it changed into mass incarceration. And what they did down south was people on the plantation, the master could pay for people in prison to literally come work on their plantation. They just found a workaround to what they were doing already. And we still see it in real time. Is it in our face like that? No. But if you really pay attention, it's there, and there hasn't been much that has changed. So that's what just really frustrates me. And then to say they were in prison and they've been model, and they've been model citizens. Okay, both of them got married. I'm back on the Menendez brothers. Both of them did get married. They said they have all these groups. They've gotten therapy. They've gotten all of this stuff to help themselves. Okay, congratulations. However, that should not be a criteria for people to get out of prison, because what happens to the 17 or 18-year-old that was wrongfully convicted, as in a couple of my clients who got in there, had never really done anything like that, wasn't street savvy. They go in there, they're in there for a week and they get attacked, or they get essayed, or they have to learn how to survive, or they got to go be with a group just so they can be protected, because they're going to have little notes in their file because they did things to try to live, because they were wrongfully convicted, because they didn't go in there and become a priest, and they didn't go in there and do prayer services. They don't get the same opportunity. That's not fair either, because this man and no one else knows what prison is like. Okay, I don't know where these guys are at. They could be at the cushiest of the cushiest, because some jails are better than others. But what about the ones that get on survival mode because they just trying to live? A kid going into prison for something they really did not do. They just had a bad lawyer, or they had a lawyer that had too many cases, and they didn't do what they needed to do in order to properly defend these people. And then now you're in here for something you didn't do. But because you were in prison and you got into some fights to try to defend yourself, or you got into a group because you're not trying to maintain your bodily integrity and not get it snatched from you, that should be a criteria for you to get out? No. I am not the person to think that nobody belongs in prison. I'm not that person. What I'm saying is this system is not broken. The system is just jacked up, and it's more jacked up when it comes to us as Black people, and I've seen it firsthand. And honestly, in the Menendez case, the molestation is not what you consider new evidence. It was actually a part of the trial. So basically, you just found things that corroborated what you said already. So I feel like they're reaching. Now, if they just wanted to say we're going to do resentencing because this is the way the law is, okay. But all this grandstanding that he was doing, I don't know. Like, we can see through. And see, this is why I don't like identity politics, and I do not like celebrity politics. I am not that dumb, and I am insulted when you think if you say you're Black, or you're a woman, or you're a Jew, or you're Baptist, or you're Democrat, or you're Republican, I'm just going to vote for you just because of that. I'm just going to follow the blind. I'm just going to do that. That's identity politics. Celebrity. I just saw that Beyonce is going to be with Kamala Harris. You're not going to sing me to make me want to go ahead and vote for who you, to think that all you got to do for a bunch of us Black people is go get your favorite artist and put them up there. That's going to make you go to the poll because Beyonce said go. That is crazy for me. That is absolutely crazy. And that's not saying for one way or the other. What I'm saying is we got to get back to the basis on what government is not here to save you. If you're looking for anybody to come into office and to save you, you are not going to find it. You better try to save yourself, because the government They're here to protect and to give you order. That's basically what they do. But when you look at the financial part of it, especially, we pay the taxes and we pay their bills, and we help the people that's on welfare, and we help the people that do this with the money that we make. They don't give us nothing. So stop thinking the government is going to save you. That's why it's important to look at the policies. When it comes to these judges, people don't even take it seriously. These judges, a lot of times, are what I call prosecutors and rogues. You guys are getting people who have a mindset of, if the police, who may be corrupt, say that you did it, then you did it. And then we vote them in because they got a nice family portrait. But we don't look at their policies. We don't look at, did you put them in jail for weed for 20 years? Did you put this young boy that was 15 years old that stole a bar of candy or something out of the store? Did you give him 10 years? Did you make him a convicted felon that's going to jack him up for the rest of his life based on something he did at 14? We don't look at anything like that. We just look on we like, whatever. We don't even care when a lot of these judges, if it's not in the legislature, meaning there's not a statute, law is created in courts. Law is created in courts if it's not in a statute. It's called case law. So you have to be careful who you allow to be in office. This was grandstanding to me. Now, I'm not saying one way or another. Some people say they don't feel comfortable. He said they were back and forth. But if they have a law that says that they are entitled to, once they're convicted of murder, they're entitled because they were under 26, just leave it at that. For all this extra stuff, trying to make it seem like we don't see what we see, it's crazy to me. But that's it. Thank you so much, Cynthia, for the super chat. You said, wasn't the father an executive at RCA record label in LA? Was he at any freak off parties in the day? Listen, it wouldn't shock me, because all of this stuff that you guys see with all of these actual issues, that's been Hollywood for decades. There are books about things that happen in Hollywood that has happened before you and I even were a twinkle in our mama's eye. Okay? It's nothing new. So it wouldn't shock me why it could have been Menudo. What it looked like was even a person with the Menudo started the groups, just like the Abercrombie and Finch. You start away, you exploited someone's desire to be famous, or their desire. With Abercrombie and Finch, it was the desire to be a model. So you get young boys that you like, that you think are cute, that you would be attracted to, and you bring them in, and you're basically taking advantage of them. That's what was happening in Menudo. It was a repetitive cycle. They didn't keep you past a certain age. So if you watch the Menudo story, it'll show you they were in Menudo from 1965 to 1970. They were there from 1971 to 72. It's all these different dates, because once you matured or got to a certain date, they kicked you away. They didn't want you anymore. Our system is just, again, it needs to be overhauled. That's what it needs to be. And I just hope people are responsible with their voting. Be responsible. It's nothing to look a lot of this stuff up. Like my brothers and them, before they even vote for judges, or my sister-in-law, I've had a lot of people call, like, what do you think about this person? And I let them know, no, they was a prosecutor. They did this, they did that, they did this and did that. So no. And I'm not saying all prosecutors, a lot of prosecutors do end up going into defense. So I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of the people, especially in my state, if you look them up, they used to be prosecutors. Then when they make prosecutor-like decisions, everybody's shocked. Like, what are you shocked for? They're doing what they innately feel that they should do. So anyway. Ms. Buckeye said, thank you. I agree 200%. Preach, Pammy Pam. So what was their excuse for powwowing the mom? So the alleged excuse for her is that they told her before that this was happening to them and that the mother didn't do anything. So that's why she caught the stray. And they showed the photos, like they blurred them out because I guess they were so gory, but they didn't just shoot them. They like mutilated them. Thank you again for the super chat. I appreciate that. Faith and Mental Health said, I want a DA to feel compassion for the other people in jail with childhood trauma. Exactly, because these two were already in therapy. They therapists came to the trial. So they didn't have a lack of resources. There are Black people, we just found out it was okay to go to therapy and pray. And a lot of them just don't have the resources. A lot of them have single family homes. They're in the street. Their homeboys end up being who show them love, and then they get caught up in the game. A lot of people are at the wrong. There's something called accessory. There's something called accomplice, where they didn't even pull the trigger because you were there. Even though mere presence is not supposed to be a reason for you to get caught up in unaliving someone or committing a crime, a lot of times people were just there and they get caught up. And imagine the person who pulled a trigger, they get off, they get acquitted because they got a better lawyer and they got family members that are more prestigious who can testify credibly that, oh, that he was with me, we were at the mall, but he really pulled the trigger. But then you get somebody who was just there, didn't know that the person was going to commit the crime. But because you was there, you get an accomplice, which is basically the same. You getting the exact same thing as on a conspiracy theory. You're getting the exact same result as the person who pulled the trigger. They get off, but you doing life without the possibility of parole. And you were 19. Because you didn't have credible witnesses that the jury believed, or you didn't have the money to pay for who you need to pay for in order to help you get off. So yeah, it's just, I see so much all the time, and that's why I'm so passionate. Some of these cases I have read, and I was like, how did anybody convict you in the first place? Somebody can literally come off the street and just make up a whole story and say you did it. That means nobody is safe. Nobody. Jaleisha said, I'm a bit torn. If they were actually abused, I don't think they should stay in jail. However, feel like they are getting special consideration. I'm just torn, I think, in general. I don't know if they were abused or not. Listen, it was an audio. I want you guys to do a little homework and find that audio of which one of the brothers, the reason why they couldn't testify was because they said something about making something up. I can't remember what it was, but that was why he didn't testify. Kelly said they wanted their father's money in the story. Well, yeah, I believe they are showing. Like, so his rebuttal was, we've resentenced over 300 people under the statute and 24 was murder. Okay, but we never heard of that. We never heard. You didn't go on 2020 to talk about that. You didn't go on any of these different stations to talk about that. You didn't. Does that mean we just need to flood these DA's office with paperwork? Because we did that with Marcellus and he still got executed. Not only did we flood their office, we text, we signed petitions that had well over 1 million people. And people, when they stopped answering the phone, because what they did was take their phone off the hook because everybody was calling. You know what they did after that? People went up there and were in line. And these were Black and white people. They were in line to drop off petitions. And you know what that governor said? I'll pass. I'm good. Miss Buckeye said plenty of young women who unalive their abusers in our community and serving life. What about them? I just don't like the unequal treatment. That's it. That's all I'm saying. If they deserve grace, then I think there's a lot of women that deserve the same grace. Well, they actually deserve mercy, because mercy is you did do whatever said was done, but you're not getting what you do deserve. So what I think is that they deserve the same amount of mercy that these people have gotten. And I agree with that. Are we going to reopen the files for the people that all had trauma and they've gotten into prison and now they're doing all of their due diligence and they're joining the sewing club and, you know, they joined the prison basketball league and they're teaching Bible study on Wednesdays? Are we gonna say now we think they've done their time and that they should get out too because they were abused or a man was torturing them? Are we gonna do that? That's all I'm saying. Thank you so much, Miss Buckeye, for supporting. I appreciate the love. Beautifully Made said Corey Wise from the Central Park 5. He went to the police station with his friend and was falsely accused. There's a lot. Yeah, the exonerated 5, I think is what they call them now. But yeah, and they just sued Donald Trump for some comments he made during a rally. All these rallies are, and you all better be grateful if you're not considered a battleground or a swing state, because I'm so sick of these people I never seen ever coming into my state, because Michigan is considered one that can go either way. I wanted to see you 2 years ago. I want to see some of y'all at these wrongful conviction seminars, these panels, when these men tell you, I did 27 years for a crime I didn't commit. I did 22 years for a crime I didn't commit. It was false evidence. It was corrupt cops. Our stuff got so bad in Michigan that our prosecutor came out with what's called a Giglio list. And in that list, she had to give out in the paper all of the cops that were convicted of stuff. So if the cop was convicted of bribery, if the cop was, it was like 52 names. Now, she hasn't updated that in the last, I don't know, 3 years maybe, but came out with a whole list so you'll know which cops did what when. There was a whole memo in one of the cases I had where there was a memo where one of the prosecutors wrote to the head prosecutor and said, hey, I received this information. I had 3 or 4 defense attorneys that came to me, and they said that 3 names, they gave 3 names, we'll call them A, B, and C. They testified in multiple cases. They testified, like, how are all of these 3 same people, all of a sudden they're the witnesses in all these unaliving cases? All 3 of these witnesses have been in, like, these defense attorneys was looking like, I had this same person in this other case. And these people, my client doesn't know them. So how do they know information about this unaliving saying that my client did it? So what they were doing in Detroit, they had certain people that were they were housed at the precinct on our 9th floor. And what they would do was they would put them in the cell with somebody that was accused of unaliving somebody. And they would try to get them to talk to them. If they did not talk to them, what is alleged is that the police would give them that person's discovery so they can study the case. Then after they studied the case, when it came to the preliminary examination, they would get on the stand and basically say, your client told me he did it. And then give all this information that is in the file, because they studied your file. And they give all this information about every detail of the crime that only anybody that was involved in the crime would know. So now it looks like, he must have told him that, not knowing the police is the one that provided him with the information. There were several people wrongfully convicted based on the same couple of people that were snitches. They called it was like a jailhouse snitch ring. And what these people did that were snitching, they were in there for unaliving people. One guy was in prison and they were transporting him from prison to the precinct so that he can do this stuff for the Detroit cops. And they would give them food. They would give them visits to their girlfriends. These people that have been interviewed. Oh yeah, I was with him and they let me go into their offices and get it in. They had all these perks. One of the guys was accused of unaliving somebody. They said it was a secret meeting in chambers in court. We found the transcript. A secret meeting where it was outside of the presence of the court, outside the presence of all these people, where the guy was like, they were like, yeah, he's done so much for our, he's helped us solve so many cases. He's helped us, solved so many cases. So, Your Honor, we request that his whole sentence be commuted and he'll be allowed to get out because he's helped us, man, in over like 30 cases. Nothing in your brain said, how did this man help with 30 cases? Like, everybody just think that means these snitches were better than the police. They can get people to just confess everything to them when the police couldn't do it themselves. They should have been putting them on payroll. They should have hired them if they were that good. Nothing said nothing. Something was wrong with that. So anyway, this memo that laid out everything I just told you was inadvertently placed in somebody's file who did a Freedom of Information Act. It was inadvertently placed in this man's file. He read the memo, and it has helped exonerate at least 5 people because of that memo that was found. Now, it just inadvertently was in the file. I'm just, when I tell you how crooked this stuff gets, so that's why I'm like in the thick of it, it just annoys me. Just say what it is, sir. Mr. DA and the Menendez, just say what it is. A lot of this stuff is political. You want to move and people want to do stuff. When people are in prison for things they have, or even if they were young or they're overly sentenced, that's a problem too. Overly sentencing somebody is an issue. Why are people still in prison for having marijuana on you and you doing 25 years? Because that used to be the mandatory or whatever it was at that time. Why are they still in prison? Now it's legalized in a lot of states. But people are still fighting to get their loved ones out because of it. But thank you, Faith and Mental Health, for the super chat. You said, I will be learning how to do competency evaluations. These issues will take all of us to make a change. Let's begin our work and not otherwise too. I agree. That's why I said I don't really get into politics. You know, people were running the debate. I don't want to hear nothing you got to say. Like, I'm just going to be honest. I'm going to look at your principles because that's about all I can do. And I'm going to worry about, you got to help yourself with a lot of this stuff. And you got to get people in position, because sometimes it's not even the person, it's the people that's around them that has the influence. When you have judges, a lot of times it's their clerks that's writing the opinions. So sometimes the people around them is very important. So you want somebody that is a good decision maker on who they hire, that is going to be on their team and in their ear. That's just as, if not more important. I want to see who you around. What pictures are you? Who you meeting with? How often are you meeting with families? How often are you going to the prisons? How often are you doing this or doing that? That's how I usually make my decisions, on top of looking into, who they are. I'm not blinded by the delusion. I have a political science degree, so I am not blinded by the illusion of what's going on. All it is, we having concerts at rallies, people suing for copyright infringement because you used my song. Like, all of this distraction is not going to help the position in the state that we're in right now. Aurelia said, a detective once told me men snitch faster than women. Michelle, hey, you have to. I'm to the point of, and it's not to say whether I like, it's not a personal thing towards Kamala when I talk about it, but to think that we as Black people are just reduced to, let's see who is the most popular people for the Black people. Ooh, let's get the Beehive. Let's see about the white young people. Ooh, let's go see Taylor Swift. Like, I am not going to vote based on you, LeBron James, coming up there and saying, I endorse you. That is not going to be how I vote. And for anybody to think that, to me, is just, it's insulting. It's insulting that you don't think I don't have enough brain to research and figure out who I want to vote for politically. That I can be persuaded by the celebrities, or because you're Black, or because you're Hispanic, or whatever it is, in order to vote. Now, again, a lot of people get mad at the Obama, when he was in office, and say he didn't do much. A lot of his stuff to me was symbolic. It was symbolic. He was the first Black president, and you can only do so much in politics. I mean, look at what politics is. If you really research what politics is, they can say what their heart's desires are, and it may be their heart's desire. But you can only do so much. There are certain people that really do have authority and people that help them getting to these positions. And the people that help them getting to these positions, they're going to come back for their, favor. What I'm saying. And so, yeah. That's it. Yeah, that's it. He did what he could. So I don't even hold that. The fact that he was able to pull it off, I think people are more surprised about that. But I don't know. That's not a reason to say, oh, I'm not, we let him, he didn't do nothing for us. So let's not look at anything he says or that he's endorsing somebody. That's not a reason not to endorse nobody either, because he only can do so much. He can only do so much. If Kamala gets into office, she's only going to be able to do so much. And then she was the vice president. I don't know what y'all think the vice president's job is, but what you thought she was going to do. VS Speaks said identity politics is crazy because unless folks can explain why folks voted for the first 43 and what they did for anyone that didn't look like them. Listen, Abraham Lincoln, everybody has an agenda. He is credited with freeing the slaves. But we all know what the purpose was, why he even did that. This is why they want to take history out of schools. This is why they don't want you to have Black history, so you know all the people that created everything around here. This is why. Because when you look at all these presidents, I don't even want to get into that. Leah says she is grateful for the Obama care. For always forever said the fact that people don't understand if the Senate stops something, there's nothing the president can really do. We're so focused on presidential election that you're going to mess around and lose the Senate. You know what I'm saying? Because that's where the laws are created. That's where bills are passed. And people don't that's what I said about judges. People just don't put the right emphasis. I guess president sounds so much bigger. I mean, you're the leader of the free world. It's a great title. We got to stop looking at titles and look at who has authority. And I don't think we're doing that. Half of the people don't even know who's in Congress or who is their representative for their states. And then within your own local state, it's important. People don't know who's up in their local legislative branch. That's important. We get so why are we hyper focused on the president, but we not hyper focused on who's going to be in the Supreme Court of our state? Who's going to be up in the legislature of our state when they're the ones making these laws? They're the ones that's making laws that can give someone, like how California did the under 26 youthful parole. You can do that in your state if your legislature allows you to do it. Some of these states, they can, and we were mad about Marcellus, but the real issue is why do some of these states still have a death penalty? That's something that needs to be abolished in the legislature, but we're not focused on that. We're focused on these two people who's trying to just woo you. Yeah. My people perish for the lack of knowledge. Tracy said Mitch McConnell is absolutely terrible. Yeah. But anyway, I'm gonna get off of here because I need to eat. And I did want to come back hopefully in a couple of hours to talk about this indictment with this Abercrombie and Finch. So because you guys were wearing me out in that chat, I was like, you guys clearly don't know about this case. I'm like, then one person was like, that's because you haven't went on and talked to us. We'll know about it if you come on. Dang. Thank you, June's Poetry, for the super chat. She said local elected officials have more of a say in what you get and how you get it. Yes. I know, even the city council in Detroit, they were able to pass the not checking the box for felons, where you can't use that as a criteria against them. That was local. As long as it doesn't conflict with federal law, states have the authority to make their own laws. I mean, as long as it doesn't conflict, meaning that the federal law hasn't preempted or taken over that and made it law already, so you can't be changing it around or whatever, you have the right. Every state has their right, has their supremacy. But anyway, all right, y'all. I'm out of here for real. I'm out of here. Hopefully, I'll see you guys tonight. But I gotta eat and change my attire from the airplane. I look tired, but anyway. Ooh, Lord. So I'm not gonna lay down because then I might just be gone. I'll be like, I'll see y'all tomorrow. Like she said, she might come on. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the live. Hope we had a great conversation. I enjoyed myself. Again, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And you guys have a fabulous rest of your day. And hopefully I'll see you again later.